probably on.
Nope.
Yes, we are.
No, we are.
God.
One day we'll get the intro correctly.
I don't know what you're doing here.
Anyway, welcome everybody to the fourth edition of the Big East Coast podcast. I'm Rob. Chris is over there. Today we're going to be talking about Marquette. We got Sam Newberry coming on. Should be a fun time. I think, to start out here, we'll just, cover some basic Big East stuff. So media day tomorrow. That'll be fun. We can try and podcast tomorrow night, maybe. Wednesday.
Wednesday, probably, I would say. Wednesday,
definitely want to do a media day one to go with the post that's going to go up tomorrow. But it's really just a matter of, basically we have to take a train at 7:30 tomorrow, and there's a baseball game on tonight starting at 9:40 or whatever it is out here. So, we
will merely just have to see how
alert
fit we are.
Yes.
And alert. Yes.
Only other Big East basic news that I can think of is DePaul got a commit the other day from Indiana. So they're really starting to recruit Indiana pretty well. And we talked about that, I think, on the actual DePaul podcast, how recruiting Indiana is going to be a big thing for them.
Yes, we did.
And,
we did touch on that. It was Jalen Butts.
Yeah. Yes. So we're going to shoot out an invite to Sam here, and then in the meantime, we'll start talking about Marquette. 20-13 last year?
20-13 last year. They started off pretty well in their non-conference schedule, which was to be expected because it wasn't the toughest of schedules.
Played very poorly against Iowa.
They did play very poorly in a home game against Iowa as part of the Gavitt games. Iowa, of course, was a pretty good team to start off. They kind of fell off the rails, though, eventually losing to Villanova in the round of 32. But they had picked up what looked to be a big win at the time over Ben Simmons and LSU. Didn't wind up being as big of a win as expected. They picked up a win over Arizona State to win the Barclays Legends Classic. And then they had scored a 2-point road victory in Madison over the Wisconsin Badgers, which was a big win for them as far as that rivalry goes. The Badgers at the time were pretty inconsistent with Bo Ryan as their head coach. At that point, I believe he was still there.
Yeah.
Eventually, of course, Guard took over, and then Wisconsin. So that really ended up looking like their best non-conference win at the time, and it definitely didn't at that point. And then Marquette was somewhat inconsistent through the first few portions of their Big East schedule. They were 3-5 through January 24th. They picked up a win over St. John's on the road, then scored a win over Butler, which at the time was pretty big considering that the Bulldogs had been pretty Butler had started off poorly in the Big East Conference at that point. And then, of course, they wound up finishing 8-10 before winning their Big East tournament game against St. John's and then losing to Xavier. Yeah.
All right. It looks like Sam is on. Sam, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys.
All right. Awesome. So, Sam Newberry, like I said, our Marquette guy. We were just kind of touching on last year, just doing a little recap type of thing. What's the biggest thing? I think we'll just jump right in here. The biggest thing that stood out to you last year, obviously you're up there, you're real tuned in. Was the NCAA tournament kind of an expectation last year, having Henry Ellenson, or was it just looking for year-to-year growth from 2014 or 2015?
To be quite honest, I think we really believed in the tournament. We thought, especially with Henry Ellenson being as good as he was and being as impressive of a player as he was and all the offensive uses he got, we thought we'd kind of ride him to a tournament berth. So I think we probably underperformed a little bit, especially in the Big East. But in the Big East, you had a lot of teams break out, sort of come out of nowhere. Seton Hall, I thought we would be even with, and we just absolutely could not run with them at times. And they were a very good team, and while all the indicators were there, they were that good. I think we underperformed a little bit against teams like right in that same bracket as us in terms of like in the middle of the Big East. And then obviously lost to DePaul at home, if I remember that correctly, and that was horrible. So we ended up dropping a lot of games I don't think we should have. But I thought that the tournament was a distinct possibility. I thought I just blanked on the name of the tournament right below it. The NIT. I thought the NIT was a legitimate possibility, and we missed that as well. So, I think obviously we came in, we had, a large amount of freshmen. Wojo even quoted having us 65% of our minutes in the Big East were played by freshmen. So it was a building year. I think it was a disappointment to miss the tournament, but in hindsight, not shocking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you talk about Ellenson. He was still probably the Big East best freshman since Carmelo, depending on what stats you look at. I mean,
I think I'd say for a pure freshman year standpoint, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. I think it just, at times, they were a little over-reliant on him. And, yeah, that's hard as a freshman, no matter how good you are, to just have to carry the entire team sometimes.
Yeah. We saw that with Ben Simmons and LSU too, even though the talent difference can be argued. But when you're sort of the only player on your team that people look to for offense at times, it's hard to be that production.
Yeah. And, you talked about all the freshmen last year. I think a big one that a lot of people don't talk about, Hanif Cheatham actually had a really nice year last year, did a lot of things really well. And, I think Ellenson took a lot of the spotlight from him. But, I think this year Cheatham's going to have a big year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, one of the Marquette Twitter accounts, I apologize to the guys who might be watching this later. I forget if it was Anonymous Eagle or Paint Touches. But one of the Twitter accounts following Marquette basketball asked who's the most important player and who's the most talented player. And I think Cheatham's probably the most talented player on our roster right now in terms of like what he can already do and, give him this year to prove that without Henry Ellenson there. And, if he sticks around next year too, and his senior year as well, the levels he can reach. I think he's probably the most talented player on the roster in terms of ceiling.
Yeah. No, that's definitely possible. And then last year, are we missing anyone who had a particularly good year? I know Luke Fisher had a couple big games. I was saying Doan had a big game.
I mean, as far as from a full season standpoint, I know Tracy Carter had a pretty good freshman season. His assist rate was pretty high. Obviously, the knock on him was his efficiency from a shooting perspective. He only shot 34%, so he's definitely going to need to take a big leap in terms of his shooting abilities. But
I agree.
He's one of the best in the conference as a freshman. So.
Yeah, and it's very impressive his ability to create on the floor for other people. I don't remember the stat off the top of my head, but we were so much better as an offense when he was distributing from the point than anybody else. So that's something very exciting to look forward to. He reminds me sort of right now, at least he's like in a Junior Cadogan vein, in terms of already has the ability to assist and provide. And hopefully he can grow more into an offensive, threat shooting himself or getting into the lane or something. But, he definitely reminds me in the same vein as Junior Cadogan, if not the same player.
Yeah, fantastic reference.
Yeah, no, that you nailed it. So I guess we just kind of move on to this year. Another strong recruiting class.
Yep.
And that's kind of been a hallmark of Wojo so far, in that he just great recruiting. Already has great recruiting lined up for next year too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you got Marcus Howard coming in this year. Caden Reinhardt will be good.
Sam Hauser.
Sam Hauser, and then Rousey is eligible this year as well. So, obviously we're loaded in the backcourt, or as loaded as we can get to be in the backcourt. Maybe little lacking on the bigs, but it looks like we're going to try and play a little bit like Villanova does. Will this year still. That's probably not going away, but that's going to be an interesting starting five for the first couple games, because I really don't know who's going to be starting at the 4 spot, to be quite honest. There's been talk of Reinhardt starting there. There's been talk of maybe having Dwayne Wilson play sort of a 2 and Cheatham almost play that wing since he's a larger guard, and then have Juwan Johnson play up to the small ball 4 and then Luke Fisher. But I really don't know where those 2 freshmen and transfers are truly going to fit in day one. Obviously, Hauser is behind a couple different point guards. We have other people that can shoot. Hauser, or did I say Hauser or Howard? They're so similar that I just blanked on it. So Howard's going to be behind those point guards, and Hauser's playing in a wing spot that's pretty deep as well with Juwan Johnson and Sandy Cohen III and Reinhardt. So I'm not quite sure where all 4 of those guys are going to be at the start of the season. I sort of have ideas of where they might be mid-season, but it's going to be an interesting thing. I really love Howard's game. He's ridiculously quick, absolutely great shooting motion. Performed really well with the U17s down at the U17 Olympics for the U.S. And I absolutely love what he can do with the basketball. Hauser reminds me of Sandy Cohen, that he's an athletic, he's bigger, athletic, but can still shoot the 3 and can play perimeter defense, can move his feet really well. Obviously, being Wisconsin's Gatorade Player of the Year helps too. But it's going to be an interesting fit for those 2 starting. And then same thing with Rousey and Reinhardt. I'm just not quite sure where they're going to fall yet. Rousey obviously is with Howard and Tracy Carter and Dwayne Wilson for the 1 and 2 spots, along with Cheatham being in the 2. And then Reinhardt's in that same wing spot as Hauser is. So we have a lot of very interesting pieces, but I'm not quite sure how they fall together yet.
Yeah. And I mean, did it surprise you at all that Wally Ellingson was really the only other guy, other than Henry, to really lead the team? I mean, it's like you said, it is crowded. Playing time is going to be hard to come by.
That's not that surprising. So Sakara Anim was the only other one I really thought about potentially leaving the program. Just didn't see any sort of not any sort of playing time, but minimal playing time. But he's a favorite of the coaching staff, I believe. And I'll get roasted on Twitter later for this by the guys at Anonymous Eagle and Paint Touches. But I think he won like their Workout Warrior Award, so spent the most time in the gym and a lot of time putting up extra shots after practice. And so I think he's a favorite of the coaching staff, and they love the effort he's showing. And sort of the spot he played last year when he did see minutes was backing up Juwan Johnson and playing that wing role or playing an undersized 4. And because we're playing, basically a 4 guard or 3 guard, 1 wing set with 1 big, I think he has a spot. So I'm not that surprised he didn't leave, although that would have been the only other name I would have potentially tossed out there as a person that was thinking about leaving.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. All right, do we have the schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the schedule in front of me now. So they'll start off with an exhibition against Rockhurst on November 5th, and then they kind of get right after it. They'll be playing Veterans Classic against Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
On November 11th. That's a CBS Sports Network game at 6:30 Eastern in Annapolis. Mm-hmm. So they'll be tested right away, because that's a pretty talented Vanderbilt team.
Yeah, I can't tell you off the top of my head who Vanderbilt's returning players are, but I know that they were one of the better SEC teams last year. We're definitely in contention. Were they in the tournament last year? I don't
believe they were. I think they. Yeah. I think they cut it close.
I thought they were in the bubble conversation at least. So that's going to be a really quick test.
They were in the.
Did they make it?
They were. I believe they were. Yeah, they were in the playing game against Wichita State.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so obviously it's a returning tournament team. I don't believe they lost to that many players, but maybe I'm wrong again. But that's something you can't overlook. It's a very good game. It's away from home. It's closer to Vanderbilt than it is to Milwaukee. So you could expect a few more fans maybe. So that's going to be a very quick start to our season. I'm not quite sure if we pull that off yet. I'd have to do more research on Vanderbilt. But Yeah.
Well, I got some info on them mostly just because I'm also frequenting the SEC areas when I'm talking about football, basketball's transitioning in. Vanderbilt lost Wade Baldwin and Damian Jones to the last, but they still have Luke Cornett, Matthew Fisher-Davis, and Jeff Roberson. Roberson's the player that people are probably going to have to watch out for Vanderbilt this year. I think he's an SEC Player of the Year candidate. Last season averaged, he averaged 9.3 points per game, but did so on 48% shooting, and should be able to take a big leap with Baldwin and Jones going away. Was very, very much efficient, especially on the offensive end. His offensive rating last year was 127.4, which that's considering the average is hovering around 100. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So even in limited spots, he's going to be someone to watch for. Same with Cornett and Fisher-Davis. Yeah. So they'll still be a pretty talented team. Obviously, with the SEC, everyone's fighting for second place because Kentucky's probably going to be so far ahead of everybody else. But Vanderbilt's like a second-tier SEC team. Marquette will definitely testify that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
First game for not Kevin Stallings.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let me look up Vanderbilt. Nope, that's football.
Yeah.
Bryce Drew.
Oh, yeah.
Bryce Drew.
Yeah, Bryce Drew. So, they want to get off on the right foot. So after Vanderbilt, I assume they got a couple cupcakes before they head.
So I have the schedule up in front of me as well. We have Howard next, but then we go against Michigan in the 2K Classic. Howard's also part of the 2K Classic, it looks like. But Michigan is the big game. It's in New York City, ESPN2.
The teams are Pitt and SMU. So they'll face the winner and or loser of that.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan, obviously, no LeVert anymore.
Anymore. They're going to be looking a little bit different this year.
So, really, just a couple good tests for Marquette early on. And I don't know if they necessarily had those early tests last year. So, you're looking at, a step up there.
If I recall, we had a couple decent tests early last year, but I don't think anything like we'll be seeing this year. I'm pulling it up right now. Hang on.
They had Belmont.
We had Belmont in Iowa, and then at the time LSU for the tournament we were playing in
Brooklyn.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think the 3 teams in the 2K Classic are probably better than the 3 they would have won against in Brooklyn last year.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you got that, and then I know a couple. They play a couple Pac-12 teams, right? Is that this year?
Yeah. So they're not. We don't have any really Pac-12 teams in our schedule this year. We not really cupcake after Michigan. We do IUPUI, Houston Baptist, Western Carolina. And then we have at Georgia Sunday, December 4th. So that's going to be a very good game, in my opinion. Georgia's a decent squad. I think they're kind of right on that cusp of, in maybe not Vanderbilt tier in the SEC yet, but they're kind of close. They've been getting better as far as I'm aware. I don't know who they lost last year, so there's that. But I remember them putting up some decent SEC games.
Yeah, Georgia had lost Charles Mann and Kenny Gaines, both of whom graduated, but they still have J.J. Frazier and Yonte Matten.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty talented. Frazier, I think, is all SEC caliber. He's a very good guard. Has made a name for himself down there in Athens.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do with Georgia basketball, but
and then
after that,
probably Wisconsin would be the next.
Yeah, we have Fresno State in between Georgia and Wisconsin. We get Fresno State in Milwaukee. So
Fresno was a tournament team last year.
Were they one of the automatic bids from their conference?
Yeah. The Mountain West Conference tournament.
Yeah. Because it was a down year for San Diego State last year.
Yes, they were 14 seed, which shows you how they fucked the Mountain West and Fresno State at the time, even though they won 25 games.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that could be a decent test.
they They lost Marvell Harris, Julian Lewis, and Cesar Guerrero to graduation, but they still have Torrin Jones, Cullen Russo, Karachi Ito, and Paul Watson, all of whom will be seniors this season. So they'll be pretty decent. I mean, obviously,
have the experience at least.
Exactly. I don't necessarily know on a year over year standpoint as far as the talent. I'm not sure if they're the favorites in the Mountain West, but they'll certainly be somewhat of a challenge for them.
Yeah.
And then I think Marquette's better than Wisconsin this year, but
that's fighting words to a lot of people.
I don't know about that. They will have the benefit of the game being home.
Yeah, we do get it. We do get it in Milwaukee. But Wisconsin returns everybody.
Exactly. Literally return every single person.
Yeah. And that's a squad that beat Xavier in the tournament. So, which was a heartbreaking moment for me. That's originally being from Illinois and cheering for the University of Illinois, and then now being a Marquette fan. That's always a bad day when Wisconsin wins. So, that's going to be a very, very fun game to watch. Very much looking forward to that, especially in the Bradley Center. We have a pretty decent home court advantage for the most part. And being able to go beat that same Wisconsin squad in Madison last year gives me a lot of hope for that game. But that was sort of before Wisconsin had figured themselves out as a team and became the Big Ten giant killer they were. So that's probably, without a doubt, the most intriguing matchup of the non-conference schedule, because if we can pull that off, Wisconsin's currently a top 20 team in basically everybody's poll, if not top 15. So if we can pull that off, I think it'll definitely give us an air of legitimacy and contendership, especially, or at least against, bigger name teams right now. Obviously, Marquette's had a couple down years, so rebuilding that and going to get those type of wins would be great for us.
Yeah. And then in terms of Big East play, they're not Villanova and they're not DePaul and St. John's, so they're right in that middle six.
Yeah.
I think they're probably better than Providence and maybe Butler. I don't know what to think about Butler, really, but I think they're probably in the top half of the middle portion.
Yeah, obviously we all have Seton Hall, who, although Isaiah Whitehead isn't coming back, are returning, Angel Delgado and King Carrington. I'm not recalling the rest of them off the top of my head, but is Sanogo coming back as well?
Yeah, Sanogo and Desi Rodriguez as well.
Oh, Desi Rodriguez, yeah. But I just remember Carrington absolutely going off against Marquette. And so that's a scary squad. I think they'll surprise a lot of people even without Isaiah Whitehead. I think we're probably comparable to Butler. I think Creighton's also an interesting matchup, just because of their backcourt being so good. They added Marcus Foster on transfer, and they still have Mo Watson. So that's going to be they're going to easily be able to run with our backcourt. So that'll probably come down to who can make more threes almost, just because we'll be shooting a lot more, or we might be shooting a lot more just with the roster we have. And they are known as a 3-point shooting team. Correct me if I'm wrong. If who's their player that went down with a knee injury last year that's finally getting cleared to come back?
Jordan?
Yeah, he's an absolutely fantastic shooter, and him being back on that roster is going to only help them. So I think we're probably pretty comparable to Creighton, Seton Hall, and Butler. I think we're going to be probably fighting for that 3 to 5 slot, maybe 3 to 6 slot. I'm not sure how good Georgetown's going to be this year. I think that's a lot of coin flips for a lot of people that follow the Big East. So I think we're probably hopefully we're going to be fighting for a 3 to 6 spot. Obviously Nova and Xavier are probably going to go 1-2 again. They have the talent in each of the squads to go 1-2 again. So I think probably the biggest tests are going to be if we can go get road wins at Seton Hall, if we can maybe pull off the at Georgetown on February 11th, and then win, or if we can go take, obviously we have to go take the one at Providence, but if we can win those 3 away, that gives us sort of a cushion in case Nova does Nova things against us at home. And maybe since we have Xavier on our national Marquette day at home, hopefully we can pull that win off, and that'll have us sitting rather comfortable in the top half of the Big East.
Yeah, and
their
schedule starts off pretty roughly for their first 4 games. They have to host Georgetown. They go to Seton Hall, and then to Villanova. They play them in Philly at the Wells Fargo Center, and then they play Seton Hall again at home. So they get to place in 4 games, and then they finish off that with DePaul. But then they have to go to Butler and to Creighton, and then host Villanova.
Yeah. So that first part of the season might be rough. Like I said, I think we're better than Georgetown. Obviously, I might have a slightly biased opinion, but I think we might be a better squad than Georgetown. So I hope we can take that first win at home. If we can go 3-1 in those first 4 games, I think that's going to be a very positive outlook for us. Even 2-2 in those first 4 isn't bad, because I think we should be able to handle DePaul at home. Crossing my fingers for a non-repeat of last year. And then, at Butler, at Creighton, home versus Nova is just a rough stretch in general. Having to go to Indianapolis and play Butler is never fun for anybody. And going to Omaha to play Creighton is going to be pretty tough as well. But if we can maybe go 2-1 in those, or even 1-2, and then we have a slightly easier schedule after that, I think we'll be sitting all right, probably 4th or 5th in the Big East.
Okay, and I mean that should be good enough to make the NCAA tournament then.
Yeah, hopefully. I still think we'll probably have to take a game in the tournament, no matter what, in the Big East tournament, no matter what.
Yeah.
Especially if we get a higher seed and we play somebody like a Georgetown or a St. John's or a Butler, even if we can go higher seeded than Butler. We have to be able to take that one. But I think if we finish in the top half of the Big East and then we take a game in the Big East tournament, we'll probably be probably sitting like an 11 seed, maybe 10 seed, 11 seed.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
That's kind of because that's sort of where Providence sat last year, if I'm not mistaken. Or were they at 8, maybe?
They were both either 8 or 9 because they both played the 1. So
I want to say Butler was definitely a 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Providence might have been an 8. Let me.
I think they were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So. Yeah, I think this squad is a very comparable squad to something like the Butler or Providence last year. Obviously, we're still pretty young, but I foresee good things. I think we can go top half of the Big East and take a game or 2 in the tournament. And I think that just getting back to the tournament is so important for us right now. Woj been recruiting well without making the tournament, and just to make that and show that we're definitely on the rise instead of sort of stagnating with good recruits but not anything happening. If we can, make the tournament and show that we're going in that upward direction, Wojo's job's going to be as good as he is already. It's going to be made a lot easier. So I'm excited for this season. I remember the last couple seasons have been cautious optimism, but this one's a little less cautious optimism, especially with players like Tracy and Hanif having another year under their belt, and being, if not true leaders on this squad yet, being damn good players in their own right, and having that 1 year of playing pretty decent basketball under their belt.
Mm-hmm. No, it's exciting. I mean, I think a month from tomorrow we're starting the year.
Yeah, I believe
the 11th.
So yeah, the 11th. Yep.
Yeah.
Number 11.
So it's coming up, man.
Yeah.
Should we get to our questions here?
Yeah. Let's do some questions.
Have some
here.
Twitter questions.
I believe that we will start with. Yeah. Okay. All right. First question. There's 2 questions here. First one comes from Grant Becker at GBEC10. How many wins do the new unis add?
Oh, we didn't even talk about the new uniforms. I love them. Sam, what do you think of the new uniforms?
I'm an absolute huge fan. They're incredible. There's something completely different from really most things that are out there. A lot of good homages to old uniforms the Marquette has had. I really like the bumblebee pattern down the side of the shorts on the dark blues that they played in the Madness game with. That was really fun to see. So I'm absolutely in love with the new uniforms. They're great homage, especially since this is the 100th year of Marquette basketball. All that throwback history is really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, and the next question from Grant is, will they be the worst rebounding team in the Big East?
Yeah, I mean, we have two true bigs on the roster. So it's an entirely possible thing. I don't think they will be. He's a pretty good rebounder from the guard spot. Tracy's very physical when he needs to be. So I think there's a lot of good players at spots that can go get rebounds. We're just going to be very disciplined on the defensive glass. We might be the worst offensive rebounding team in the Big East, but I think as long as we're disciplined on the defensive glass and doing every little thing right, boxing somebody out and being stingy on defense, I don't foresee us being the worst rebounding team. It's just a different style of rebounding. And Luke Fisher is going to have a huge year too. But
Marquette was 9th in offensive rebounding percentage within the conference last year. They were ahead of only Creighton, and then they were 6th in the conference in defensive rebounding. They were ahead of Seton Hall, DePaul, St. John's, and Providence. So
wow, that's surprising.
If I'm reading this correctly, of course. It looks like I am.
I mean, last year Henry Ellenson sucked up a bunch of defensive rebounds along with Luke. And then, like I said, we've had pretty decent rebounders at the guard spots. So we might see a downtick in those numbers just because Henry sucked in so many rebounds. He averaged, near a double-double in the Big East. But I don't foresee us being the worst rebounding team. I think we should be able to beat Creighton. They didn't really add a ton of size as far as I'm aware. And they still play their Creighton game of guard-oriented, shooters, quick movers. So I think we'll be physical enough to rebound with them. I think Seton Hall will probably be a better rebounding team this year. Their bigs all have another year of experience. And Angel Delgado was, if not an honorable mention, a second team All Big East selection, I believe. So he's a great player down in the post. So we might be in the bottom half of the Big East in defensive rebounding, but I don't think we'll be the worst team.
Okay,
that's fair. And I believe that this was only for conference games only. So within
that's true.
Let's see. Next question we have from Chris Lane. I hope I said that right. At Cohead 009. I'm sorry if I am. Is this the year that Marquette finally goes dancing again?
Yes. I think so. I really do. I think that, like I said, if we can come out positive in the Big East and be in the top half and take a game in the tournament, which sounds like a lot of ifs, but really isn't all that many, I think we go dancing. We remind me of a lot of Butler last year. Sort of a very good team that'll be on the cusp of it. So I think we go dancing.
Okay.
We have 3 questions here from Andy Dales at ADH Dales. First question: Who improves the most from last year?
I think Tracy Carter. And you've already sort of proved that he has the offensive skill set to play that 2 guard. Tracy obviously was a great distributor, but needs to work on the dribble drive, shooting percentages. But I really think that. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. I think Tracy becomes a much better player. And just like as soon as he becomes a threat at the point guard, he's going to probably be the most improved player in the Big East. If he can get to the rim with much more certainty and then have the ability to not only be a one-dimensional slasher and step back and take a jumper. He managed to make the most random 3-pointers the weirdest times of games last year, but if he can make that a much more consistent part of his game and add a more consistent jump shot within or in between 15 feet or right outside of 15 feet, I guess, then I think he'll be the most improved Marquette player.
That's who I would have gone with.
Yeah.
That's a pretty easy choice. All right, next question. What will the minutes breakdown look like?
Oh, Lord. So I don't know what the starting five is. I think we alluded to that earlier. But I think if you're looking at – I couldn't tell you the minute breakdowns. But if we're looking at sort of like lines of players, my initial thought for starting the season is going to be Tracy Carter at the point. Hanif Cheatham is going to be playing the 2. I'm going to step out on a limb and say Caton Reinhardt and Jawan Johnson started the 3 and 4 sort of interchangeably. And obviously Luke Fisher at the 5. Second tier will probably be Andrew Rousey, Dwayne Wilson, Sandy Cohen. Sandy being like the dark horse interchangeable with Caton Reinhardt for maybe starting initially during the season. Matt Held at center. And then I think Hauser sort of fits into that mold of like what we are looking for. He's very similar to Sandy, very similar to Caton Reinhardt, very similar to Jawan Johnson, or at least plays the same position as they do, which leaves Howard, leaves Annam, and leaves I'm missing one player on this roster, and I feel really bad.
Matt Held.
Matt Held. Oh no, I said Matt Held's going to be on that second line, sort of, because he's Luke Fisher's backup.
Yeah.
I have a roster in front of me. I don't know why I'm not looking at it. This one still lists a whole bunch of people that aren't there. So those are 12. I feel bad for Howard. I still think Howard's going to get minutes. But he's just in such a stacked spot. And being sort of like he's 5'11", I believe. While he's super fast, he's still behind Tracy and Rousey at the true point guard spot. And then if he were to play any off guard, he's behind Cheatham and Dwayne Wilson. And I think Dwayne Wilson gets rotated in. He's a captain this year. So I don't know where Howard's minutes fall into place yet. Other than that, I think Sakar has a much better year and he'll see a lot more minutes, but he's still in sort of a loaded spot with Sandy sort of being preferred over him at times, and then adding Reinhardt and adding Hauser, and then obviously having Jawan Johnson, who I think along with Luke Fisher and Hanif Cheatham are probably top 3 best players on this roster. So I think those Howard and Annam are going to be the ones hurting for minutes the most, and then everybody else is a second stringer. So, yeah.
I mean, I think Howard's good enough where he might force his way into some more minutes over maybe a couple of those other guys, but everything else, I mean, you're pretty much spot on.
I agree. Like I said, I still think Howard gets minutes. It's just who he's competing with for all those guard spots. A lot of people do similar things to him and have more experience. So I think he might be the one at first that's looking for more, but he'll play his way into a lot more as the season goes along.
Yeah.
All right, and the final question from him is, where does Marquette finish in the conference?
I'm optimistically saying 4th. I think truly probably 4th or 5th. I think that I think obviously Nova and Xavier are better than us. I think they're going to continue to be the class of the Big East for a while. I think Creighton's a very, very good team this year, and Creighton will be in the mix with us. I think that Seton Hall will also be in that conversation. Butler will always be relevant. Georgetown will always be relevant. Georgetown will always have the ability to take games off of people. And then Providence, I think, will have a down year, especially losing Ben Teal. Obviously, we all knew Chris Dunn was declaring. So losing Ben Teal, who sort of came out of nowhere to have an incredibly good season last year, is going to hurt. But, we can't be too complacent with teams like that, even though I believe personally that Providence and Georgetown finish a little bit lower this year. But I think optimistically is 4th, and then reality is probably 4th or 5th. So,
yeah, I mean, somewhere in the top half of the 6 teams that are not the top 2 or bottom 2.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes for us from Nick Byer at less than Nick 11. Which transfer ends up better, Rousey or Reinhardt?
Rousey has 2 seasons, so we're going to see a lot larger sample size between him this year and him next year. Reinhardt was a strange transfer. I really like what he adds to our game, but considering our distinct lack of big guys, he's going to be asked to do a lot of things he's not used to doing, which is rebounding a lot more, playing against bigger defenders. But on the flip side of that same coin, I think he probably came into this squad knowing that, and he's been told that by the coaching staff. So I think this year Reinhardt's going to have a slightly larger impact. Rousey has to run against, obviously Tracy, obviously Hanif. Howard's going to be pushing for minutes. Dwayne Wilson's a captain and has been a good player. So Rousey's going to be pushing against a lot of good players for time. So I think this year Reinhardt will probably be a bit more valuable just of where he fits a need in our squad and sort of who he's against in terms of starting spots and minutes. It just depends on how well Tracy develops to see what Rousey does next year as well. So I think Reinhardt's going to be the better one this year, and it might be the better one overall.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree just because, like you said, Reinhardt will have more opportunities, especially this year. So, I mean, based on what I saw, I mean, he was used to playing with bigger guys at USC, so it's going to be a little bit of a transition for him, but very good shooter, very good scorer.
Yeah. I like what he adds in that role too. So even though he's going to be going against larger guys, that means he's going to be able to use the skill set he's been developing against larger players or slower players that aren't used to somebody his size shooting. So I'm really happy of what he has the potential to do on the offensive end. It's can he hold his own on the defensive end? That'll be the big decider.
Yeah.
Especially rebounding and low post defense.
Yeah.
All right. Final question comes to us from Eric Gebhardt, Eric Gebby. What will Dwayne Wilson's role on this team be?
So he's been named a captain. He's one of the senior players. It's along with Luke Fisher, Jawan Johnson, and himself are all the veterans that have been with the roster for the longest amount of time. I'm not sure he starts yet. There's been a couple of my friends and I had this discussion last week where he might sneak in as like the 2 guard and then Cheatham plays up to the 3 with Jawan Johnson playing a small ball 4 and then Luke Fisher. So there's been talk about maybe him starting. I think realistically, he's probably the 6th man on this roster. Brings a lot of energy, a lot of hustle, a lot of heart right off the bench. Being able to spell somebody like Cheatham and give him rest so he can be a huge offensive threat later in the game. And Dwayne has always been a good player for us. So I think that he's probably a 6th man on this roster, which is obviously sad. You want to see him starting, and he's a hometown kid. But I think that with the talent we have right now, he's probably the 6th man and sort of the soul of the team, sort of being an emotional leader, being a big voice in the huddle, and being a motivator as well.
Okay.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because he is one of your senior leaders, and he's just not necessarily good enough to start, but he can still play a big role in other ways.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of that idea from last year, where he was sort of the spark plug off the bench last year as well. Him along with Wally were sort of maximum effort type of guys, and always throwing their bodies on the line and stuff like that. So I don't foresee his role changing right now unless he just has this incredible season or start to the season and maybe forces his way into the starting 5. But I don't think he starts early in the season for us.
Okay.
That's all the questions. Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam, thanks for joining us. We will have to have you back on during the season.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Before you leave, where is the spot to go after Marquette games in Milwaukee?
Well, so you're a street away from 3rd Street, which has a whole bunch of entertaining bars. You're also a couple streets away from Water Street, which has even more entertaining bars. So if you are above 21, of course, you can go there. Otherwise, campus is always fun. Campus bars are always fun. I need to probably stop mentioning the bars, but yeah, there's a ton of fun things to do in Milwaukee too. So if you're gonna be swinging by for a game, there's brewery tours, the art museum, a lot of cool historical places. Lakefront, it's always interesting, especially if you can get there before it gets way too cold in November, because it likes to snow in November, and after it starts to thaw out a little bit in early March. So if you're gonna be visiting, that'd be probably the places to go.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Not a problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
No problem.
Yeah. Take care, y'all.
Yep. All right. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Well, so that was informative. That was good.
That was good.
That was good
stuff. Thanks again to Sam for joining us.
You can follow Sam on Twitter at
SNEUB. No, sorry. SNEWB 22.
Yes.
Snoop 22.
Yes. Nice guy. Cardinals fan, but what can you do?
Yep.
So yeah, that will probably about do it for the Marquette portion, and now we're probably just gonna talk about baseball and wrestling. I said we save it for the end. Actually, I can give a little Milwaukee input since we've been to Milwaukee. Definitely prefer Oscars to. Well, I haven't been to Supplements.
I haven't been to Supplements, but Oscars was pretty.
Oscars was very good. Nice environment they got there too. Not too far from the Bradley Center. And then if you are in town, the Lakefront Brewery tour was a lot of fun.
It was.
Went there. You get, I think, like 4 free beers.
Yeah. Something to that effect.
A lot of fun. Milwaukee's nice. Milwaukee's a nice town. So yeah, do that in Milwaukee. That's a lot of fun.
Definitely would agree.
And now we're gonna talk about baseball and wrestling. Wrestling first, probably. Wrestling at the Bradley Center, which on the surface didn't look like there was a lot, but I remembered Austin 316 was. I don't think that was the Bradley Center. I think it was Milwaukee Civic Center.
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah.
Someone in our mentions actually brought up a whole bunch of examples. I don't remember. It was recent. If you want to check the mentions real quick.
No, that was at the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee, which now is the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena.
So it's one across the street from the Bradley Center.
Yep.
But in terms of things that happened at the Bradley Center, I know there were.
Well, let's see. Yeah, it's still running today, I believe.
I know WCW ran events at the Bradley Center.
Yeah, something to that effect.
Just want to
because
look up the Bradley Center.
Which one?
Or the guy that was just in our mentions.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what you were referring to. Do you remember when it was or
just
what?
As we were coming on.
Was it?
Yes. So.
Oh yeah. The Mega Powers exploded.
Yeah.
In Milwaukee.
Yes.
The return of the New World Order at No Way Out 2002.
Oh, okay.
That happened. And Taboo Tuesday.
Yeah, we knew that. That was stupid.
It's a dumb event.
But
event. Thank you to Romo is Matthew at Matthews Romo.
Actually gave us the idea originally for the wrestling history at the arenas. So
wait. Well, we missed out on the garden.
That's a good thing though, because that would have went way too long. That would have went way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long. It's okay though.
So yeah, baseball. The Blue Jays won in pretty cool fashion.
Yeah, pretty dramatic fashion. Mitch Moreland pulled a Lucas Duda. Sorry, my friends.
They deserve it.
So yeah, the Blue Jays are on to the ALCS. The Indians and Red Sox will be playing later today. We could have our 2 ALCS teams by the end of the day if Cleveland is to sweep Boston. And I think the extra day of rest that they inadvertently got actually favors Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you were talking about earlier. If you can get 5 innings out of your starter, you can do the Andrew Miller thing that you did in Game 1 again.
Exactly, and he has another day of rest. He wasn't used in Game 2 at all. It was Kluber and then Otero.
Yeah, and then if you win today, what do they start Friday?
Yeah, they start
so.
Friday. So then, boom, it immediately continues to be in their favor. So
yeah, The Nationals tied it up.
They did.
I mean, I still think the Dodgers are going to win both home games.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Of course, we don't know if Clayton's going to be – well, Clayton is going to be available for Game 4, but he's probably not going to start unless they're down 2-1 in the series.
Yeah.
So Game 3 is pretty important. That starts in about an hour and 10 minutes out on the West Coast on OB Network. Yeah. And, of course, your team plays at 9:30 tonight.
So just real quick, if both the NL series end before Game 5, we're getting Lester Kershaw to open the NLCS, which, I mean, you want the best pitchers going.
You could do a lot worse than that, that's for sure.
But, yeah, the Cubs play tonight. Do you guys know Madison Bumgarner is good in the playoffs?
Did you know that it's an even year and the Giants are supposed to win the World Series based on that? We'll see how that works out.
I picked Cubs in 4, but I'm starting to talk myself into them winning tonight. So we'll see. That's it for baseball. Big East Media Day tomorrow. Podcast either tomorrow night, maybe Wednesday, especially if the Cubs end up playing tomorrow night.
And be sure we'll be tweeting updates from Madison Square Garden tomorrow. May do some Snapchat stuff as well.
Facebook Live.
May do some Facebook Live stuff also. So just be on the lookout for that.
Keep it dialed in.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's it.
That's it. So we'll be back next time around to talk about
Creighton. Right?
Creighton, yeah.
Creighton with Alex.
Yep, with Alex Sindelar. So.
And that is going to be, that might have to be Thursday.
It will likely be Thursday.
I can't do it Friday
or
Monday. So, yeah, probably Thursday. So, big podcasting week. But, it's a special event week.
Yep.
Got to keep rolling along. So, thanks for joining us again if you're on the live show or if you are listening to us later via iTunes, which I believe we are on iTunes now. I haven't gotten the actual email, but if you look up Big East Coast Podcast, I believe you can subscribe on iTunes.
Yeah. Should be able to.
Otherwise, I tweet out the link every time after we upload it. So, yeah.
Okay.
That
about does it. So for Rob, I'm Chris. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you likely Wednesday and or Thursday.